Hey, welcome to Money Mondays with Ash Cash, and today we are talking about your credit again. But this time, we're talking about your credit score. What the FICO?
Hey, it's Money Mondays. You have money questions? Ash has money answers. Every Monday, start that week off strong. Let's do this.
You're now tuned into the financial motivator himself, Ash Cash, Mr. Mind Right, Money Right. Money Right.
Welcome to Money Mondays with Ash Cash, part of the Be Empowered podcast series brought to you by Bank Mobile, the first all-digital fee-free bank in the country. I am Ash Cash, and welcome. So last week, we talked about your credit report, right? Because your credit report is what actually fuels your score. A lot of people talk about the score, but you have to understand what fuels that score. So that's why we talked about your credit report. So if you didn't listen to episode 2 when we talked about credit reports, stop this right now. Listen to episode 2 when we talk about credit reports first, and then you listen to this when we talk about your credit score. So just some quick tidbits, right? There are tons of scores out there. There's so many different types of scores, but the two scores that you need to be concerned with are your FICO score and your Vantage score. Why FICO and Vantage? Well, FICO is what 90% of lenders use to determine your credit worthiness. It's the score that is the leading score right now. Vantage is a score that was introduced back in 2008 by the 3 credit bureaus. So you're talking TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. They created their own score to compete with FICO. And some people are using Vantage. So even when you go to creditkarma.com and you pull up your credit report and it gives you a score, you're not getting your FICO score. You're actually getting your Vantage score. But the good thing about it is that if you understand how your FICO score works, how your FICO is calculated, then you can effectively change your Vantage score and the other scores out there that judge your credit. So FICO ranges from 300 to 850. Anything below 620 needs improvement. We're not going to say bad. We're going to keep it positive, right? So just needs improvement. From 620 to 680 is fair credit. From 680 to 720 is good credit, and anything above 720 is excellent credit. So our goal is to get to that 720, and what are the ways to do that? There are 5 factors that affect your credit score. I like to call it the 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. I did that purposely, right? If you remember those numbers, you will remember that it equals 100%. So understand that your credit score is broken down into those 5 categories. 35% of your score is your payment history. 30% of your score is your usage ratio or amounts used. 15% of your score is your length of credit history. 10% of your score is your new credit. And the other 10% of your score is the types of credit that you use. So first, payment history, which is the biggest chunk of your credit score, is based on your current payment records for car loans, mortgages, retail account, installment loans, credit cards, or other on-paid as agreed accounts. It includes any public records, bankruptcies, foreclosures, wage garnishments, liens, judgments. Any severe delinquencies show up on this as well. It affects this as well. Any past due amounts, recent delinquencies or collections, number of past due or derogatory accounts. The key thing to remember as it relates to your payment history is that you make sure you pay all of your bills on time, because the newest late payment and collection account have the largest impact on your score. If you are past due for any reason, get current now. The longer you stay current and pay your bills on time, the higher your credit score will be. Don't be quick to close accounts. Doing so may result in losing valuable credit score points associated with that account. And that actually affects that 15% of your length of credit history, but we'll talk about that in a second. Secondly, amounts owed, which is 30% of your score. That accounts for any amounts that you owe on any revolving credit accounts. It talks about the total amounts owed on all accounts. Any accounts that have balances, it's looking at the proportion of the balance to the credit limit on revolving accounts. So let me just give it to you in layman's terms. 30% of your score is based on this. So if you have a credit card, you shouldn't be using, or not just a credit card, any lines of credit, revolving line of credit. And what that means is anything that you use and as you pay it back, you have access to it again. You shouldn't use over 30% of that. So let's say, for instance, if you had a $1,000 credit card, you should not be using over $300, which is 30% of $1,000. If you use over 30% of your credit limit, you are negatively impacting your score. People don't know that, and that's important. So make sure you keep your balances low on your revolving credit. Pay off your credit instead of just moving it around. You know, that's one of the most effective ways to keep your credit score high, is to keep your balances low. Next, we have the length of credit history, which is 15% of your score. And that's really just talks about the age of your accounts, the number of recently opened accounts, the time since your last account activity. Some key things to remember as it relates to the length of credit history. If you're just establishing your credit history, stay away from trying to open new accounts too soon. New accounts may bring down your score temporarily, especially if you're just starting out. So make sure that you're not just going and opening up a lot of accounts. If you have past payment history problems, reestablish yourself as soon as possible. Opening new accounts that you can afford to pay off on time will increase your credit score in the long term. And try not to open up too many accounts with creditors who are known to lend to consumers with less than perfect credit, because doing so may hinder your ability to obtain additional credit from more traditional lenders. Next, the types of credit used, which is like your credit mix, and that's 10% of your score. And that's really the number of various types of accounts. For example, credit cards, retail accounts, installment loans, mortgages, consumer finance accounts. These are all your credit mix, and your credit mix is based on how many different accounts that you have. So having a good credit mix is actually a good thing. But again, make sure you're only applying and opening accounts that you need. Don't just do it to have them available. A good credit mix is having 3 open and active revolving accounts, 1 to 2 installment accounts, and 1 mortgage. If you're just starting out, you're probably not going to have all of those, so don't necessarily focus on this too much, because that's only 10% of your score. The big things to focus on: paying your bills on time, 35% of your score. Your usage ratio, 30% of your score. That's 65% of your score so far. 15 is the length of credit history, which is 80%. So just focus on that. And then lastly, any new credit or inquiries, that's also 10% of your score. And that includes number of recent open accounts, number of inquiries, the time since your last inquiry, the time since opening an account. And the main thing to focus on this is that anytime you try to open an account, you're going to have what's called a hard inquiry, and that's going to stay on your credit report. That actually decreases your credit every time you do it. So you want to make sure you're not applying for things unnecessarily. If you check your own credit, that's a soft inquiry, and that has no effect on your credit score. So just to recap, make sure you understand the 35, 30, 15, 10, 10, 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. Payment history, that's 35% of your score. Amounts owed or usage ratio is 30% of your score. Length of credit history is 15% of your score. Your new credit is 10% of your score. And the types of credit in use is 10% of your score. If you understand how to affect this, you will be on your way to maintaining a great credit report. I am Ash Cash. Make sure you tune in each and every week. Money Mondays with Ash Cash, part of the Be Empowered podcast series brought to you by Bank Mobile. Make sure you check us out, www.bankmobile.com. I'll see you next week, same time, same place.
You're now tuned in to the financial motivator himself, Ash Cash, Mr. Mind Right, Money Right. Money Right. Money Right.